A couple days ago, I went out with friends, which is unusual for me. Throughout my entire school, I had no friends, so it was quite nice to have coworkers as friends as an adult. Currently, I'm at my grandmother's house filming. You may see cows in the background, but I think they're more that way out of view. The Kamar Daban incident was a mysterious large amount of people losing their lives that occurred on August 2nd, 1993 in Russia, similar to the Dyatlov Pass incident. That case has been mentioned many times, so it is not worth repeating, though this one is not as well known. Not many people are aware the Dyatlov Pass incident was not the only mysterious hiker passing to occur in Soviet Siberia. Russian mountains' rugged landscape has made them a popular hiking destination for tourists, but in 1993, 6 of those tourists did not make it out of the mountains alive. There are few answers in this case, and the sole survivor has refused to talk about this traumatic event since her first statement to police in 1993. One of the hikers, a 41-year-old woman, was an experienced mountain guide and survival expert known by colleagues and students as a master. She is known for her tough love towards her students and often pushes them hard. This tough love eventually paid off, as her students described her as a good teacher who taught them confidence and important hiking skills. In the summer of 1993, she planned to go hiking with 6 of her students in the Russian mountains. She was very experienced in this area, a popular tourist destination, and considered a very safe place for hiking, especially in the summer. Her students trained with her for the trip, and she was very close to all of them. The students ranged in age from 15 to 24. The group of 7 arrived at the mountains excited about their trip up. The weather forecast promised them clear blue skies and sunshine. The teacher, Mila, and her students were one of 3 hiking groups in the area, one of which was led by Lumida's daughter, Natalia. Their 2 groups planned to meet again 3 days later when their hiking routes intersected. All 6 students were ready to start the hike, as it was their chance to prove that they were experienced hikers. It was a trip that they had been planning and looking forward to for months, and the group had grown closer as a result. The first 2 days of walking went better than expected. The team had a great time at the top of one of the mountains. They were putting in a lot of effort. However, after 2 days they began their descent. The weather forecast was wrong, and they encountered a rainstorm. With the hikers' supplies soaked, their journey was slowed by the extra weight. When the hikers were exhausted, Lumida decided to hastily camp in an open location, despite the presence of a forest cover nearby. That night the group could not light a fire, but the spirit was still very happy. The next morning the fire building effort was successful, and they had breakfast together before leaving for the day. They had planned to meet Natalia and expected to be able to make it because of how quickly they had climbed the mountain the day before. Later that day, Natalia and the group went to the meeting point, but her mother never arrived. The group left, and she was not worried about her mother, claiming that the bad weather had set her back. Unfortunately, what set the group back was much worse than she could have imagined. 6 days later, the group of kayakers noticed something in the tree line as they paddled down a river at the base of the mountains. A lone girl stood looking at them. The kayakers got out of the boat, and when they approached her, some sources said she was covered in dried blood. The girl became hysterical as she tried to tell her story to the kayakers. She eventually identified herself as Valentina Otochenko and said she had been hiking with 6 other people. Horrified, the kayakers took Valia to the nearest police station to file a complaint. However, it was not until many years later that she gradually told the story of what happened to the remaining 6 people. Her story was perplexing and terrifying. According to Valia, that morning the group went down the mountain after breakfast. But after only a few minutes, the first disaster happened. Sasha, who was at the back of the group, started screaming. When everyone turned, they saw him bleeding from the eyes and ears, foaming at the mouth. He fell to the ground, convulsing, and then became motionless. Lyumida ran towards him and ordered the rest of the group to continue. She was extremely distraught, trying in vain to wake him up. The remaining group had not gone far when they heard Lyumida scream, turning and running towards her. They noticed she had the same symptoms as the boy. Her eyes and nose were bleeding, and she was foaming at the mouth. She convulsed and fell on top of him. Tatiana, who arrived at Lyumida first, was the next to collapse, clutching her throat as she could no longer breathe. She suddenly crawled to a nearby rock and banged her head on it until she went limp. Both Victoria and Tamir ran away while Dennis hid behind a rock. Valia could not move after seeing 3 of her best friends die in just a few minutes. Victoria and Tamir collapsed while running and died in the same way, vomiting blood and scratching their throats, tearing their clothes. Realizing that they were the only ones left, Valia and Dennis ran towards each other and hastily left the place where their friends suffered. However, not long after Dennis collapsed and convulsed, fearing for her life, Valentina ran away and left her friends behind. She only had a tent and clothes she carried on her back as supplies. Valia ran down the mountain until she was sure she was away from the tragedy she had just witnessed. Under the cover of a suitable tree, she pitched her tent for the night and fell asleep. When she woke up and realized she was still alive, Valia immediately knew she would need supplies if she wanted to survive alone in the wilderness. The problem is that she will have to return to the place her friends had passed away to get these supplies. Knowing she had no other choice, Valia returned to the mountain. When she got there, she saw that none of them had moved from where they fell. Knowing they were all deceased, Valia took the necessary items from them and left. For 4 days, she followed power lines down the mountain, hoping someone would find her, until she came across the river and began following it. Late on the 4th day, she was found by the kayakers and brought to safety. Despite reporting to the police, no official search was carried out for 2 weeks because Valia was still unable to tell her version of events. It took days to find the bodies by helicopter. The autopsy report concluded that they all passed of hypothermia except Lyumida, who had a heart attack. They all had signs of bruising to their lungs and protein deficiency due to malnutrition. Their passings were ultimately ruled accidental. Compared to Valia's testimony, this decision is strange. Many explanations have been put forward behind the mystery of this incident, which is understandable given the amount of investigation that has been done on the subject. These beliefs, like any unexpected event, range from science-based explanations to beliefs involving extraterrestrial life and the paranormal. Maybe the hikers accidentally encountered a Russian military experiment in the mountains. Given that they took a different route than the usual routes through the area, it is likely that their altered route brought them into contact with testers who were not expecting visitors. Even so, this explanation has two major flaws. Where the hikers lost their lives and Valia survived. During summer, many groups of tourists can be seen passing through the mountain range at any time. It would be strange for a top-secret experiment to take place in a public space during Serbia's tourist season, especially when there are many options for secretly. Additionally, the part of the mountain where the hikers passed is open space visible from the air and higher ground. The mountains would have been a bad choice as a location for a top secret operation worth sacrificing one's life for. There is also the curious case of Valia. What allowed her to live? She cannot escape. There is nowhere to escape or hide, so reconsider the geography of the area. Why wasn't she silenced by the military? Why were only the others hurt? Nerve agents can also cause cardiac arrest, which is what led to La Lumida's passing. Although they were exposed to the nerve agents, the cause of passing for the other hikers was likely hypothermia, as they may have lost consciousness or been in a coma before passing from exposure. YouTuber Cadaver presented a more detailed explanation of this theory. He believes that Novichok gas could be the nerve agent that took the lives of the hikers. The Novichok line of nerve agents was developed by Soviet Russia in 1993, the year of the tragedy. They are believed to be one of the most dangerous nerve agents ever created. According to some reports, the poison was tested near the area. The hikers would have passed quickly after being exposed to this gas. However, there are errors in these explanations. The first and most prevalent is Valia's. She was close to the majority of her deceased friends, and she even returned to the scene without suffering the same fate. Second is, where does the gas come from if there is no one present to release it? The Morbid Curiosity website explains more potent nerve agents can be dangerous in areas where they initially used to long after their initial release. This means they could have lingered in the tree line or the atmosphere, etc. They are water soluble, can take 4 months to dissipate, and consist of large particles that frequently float close to the ground. The rain plays an important role in this, a powerful nerve agent that had been tested only 4 to 5 months earlier in a more secret location in the mountains may have been washed up the hill by rain. Some still dangerous chemicals travel with the water as it evaporates in the morning sunlight, but they do not travel very far, remaining close to the ground. Sasha unfortunately walked in a heavily contaminated area, causing symptoms to appear almost immediately. He may have inhaled the poison or absorbed it through his skin. Lumita also faced the same dangerous environment as she ran towards him. Timir, Tatiana, and Victoria were the first to arrive at Lumita, but they immediately fled. This slightly delayed their demise. Valia was not exposed to significant concentrations of the poison because she did not come close to Lumita. Instead, she only interacts with Victoria, who has left the contaminated area. Dennis was also initially unaffected, but his choice to crouch and hide led him to being exposed. He inhaled a small amount of the poison floating near the ground. Although he passed slower because he was less exposed to it than the other 5, it eventually came to him. Russian authorities waited the 2 weeks to begin searching to ensure that the chemical had largely evaporated before sending in a recovery team, suspecting that spillover from the nerve agent testing to be responsible. This argument requires a lot of faith in the solubility and rate of evaporation of the nerve agent. It remains unlikely that Valia could have left without being exposed, although it is possible that she was far enough away, avoiding the epicenter of the contamination. When a person experiences trauma, they often misremember some details, especially when recounting the event much later, as Valia did. Through no fault of her own, Valia could have embellished some of the details of the story. Much research has been done on the unreliability of eyewitness accounts. It is possible that the hikers did indeed pass in a manner described in the autopsy reports because they were not adequately protected that night. The group passed together on the mountain from hypothermia by choosing to go into the forest, choosing a different outfit, or as Valia asserted, thanks to her good physical strength, she was able to survive. It should be noted that people who succumb to hypothermia frequently experience sudden hotness when the brain gives up on sending the freezing feeling to the body. They often take off their clothes just before they pass, as they feel hot. This explains why the hikers were found partially undressed. This idea not only supports itself, but can also be used to support other theories where there appears to be elements missing from her testimony that doesn't add up and may have been exaggerated. However, it is impossible to determine the reliability of each aspect in her accounts. Perhaps the hikers consumed toxic rainwater. A common place for toxic waste disposal is a lake located above the mountains. Hikers may have accidentally ingested lethal chemicals in their breakfast if toxic waste was washed into the waterways. Valia may have been able to survive by consuming less water or getting water from a different source than the other hikers. Most likely, toxic substances take several minutes to take effect, explaining why it wasn't during their breakfast. Poison can cause them to pass out, causing typical toxicological assessment. This argument is flawed in that this was the only group that experienced this. It would not make sense for one group to be affected by such a severely contaminated water supply if the place is frequented by many tourists. One of the most intriguing theories is that they may have eaten something poisonous. Lumita enjoyed foraging and taught her student when one of the hikers probably chose the wrong type of mushroom to add to their breakfast. The effects of mushroom poisoning began to take effect while they were walking after breakfast, causing them to hallucinate and feel nauseous. Interestingly, seeing others cry blood is a common hallucination caused by the chemical found in poisonous mushrooms. Overdose can lead to psychosis, seizures, cardiac arrest, and can leave a person in a coma. Valia survived by eating fewer mushrooms, being able to withstand the effects. She had fled into the woods and escaped to hide from the paranoia. Although this tragedy remains a mystery, there are many intriguing possibilities that could explain it. Unfortunately, many of the hikers' loved ones may never get closure from this incident because there is no clear cause. Turnbull Canyon is located in Southern California. It is a popular attraction for hikers and fitness enthusiasts with its challenging but manageable trails and beautiful scenery. However, according to local people, this canyon is where many horrifying events occurred. Legend has it that the canyon is not only haunted, but it also is the site of black magic rituals, human sacrifice, and several horrific crimes. Native Americans consider this natural formation to be off limits due to the numerous sightings of ghosts and evil spirits. Turnbull Canyon is said to have been the battlefield of many Native American wars. Some residents claim to have heard war drums coming from the canyon. This Native American tribe was named Zabarlinos after being forced to convert to Christianity during the San Gabriel mission. At that time, it was not uncommon for Spanish missionaries to hurt those who refused to convert. Legend has it that many of these crimes took place right in the canyon. The belief that the spirits of Native Americans who had their lives tragically taken from them persist further to strengthen the belief that the canyon is haunted. During the Great Depression, reportedly the canyon was used for dark and mysterious purposes. At that time, families often sent their children to orphanages because they simply did not have the food to feed them. Local legend has it that a cult would adopt children from these orphanages and sacrifice them in the canyon. Locals claim to have seen the ghosts of these children as well as hooded figures walking the trail at night. These sightings still happen today. In Turnbull Canyon, there is what is known as the hanging tree. It was named after a man found hanging from one of its limbs. Witnesses said the man could still be seen hanging from the tree if you visit the same time of day it happened. There is no word of when this might happen. I also have no information on when this might have happened in history. In 1952, a plane crash took the lives of 29 people, including 21 children. An American Airlines plane crashed into the highest hill in the canyon. There are no records of American flights in the area, no missing aircraft in their fleet. No one on the plane had identification, including the pilot. The only record of the accident is a small article in the Whittier Daily News. Local people believe that dark magic exists in the canyon that caused this terrible accident. In 1962, the ruins of a psychiatric facility that burned down in the 1940s was where a group of teenagers were partying. A boy finds an old electroshock machine. When he picked it up, he was electrocuted with such a strong voltage that he passed away. The bizarre part of this is that occurred when it was discovered the power had been cut off after the fire 20 years prior. In 2002, a young woman named Gloria Gaxolia had her life taken in Turnbull Canyon Road. She was shot, then dragged behind a car on this road for 5 miles. Thankfully, the police arrested the perpetrators. As a popular racing track, there have been other unfortunate passings involving cars, including that of a motorcycle officer in September 2005. 5 who was struck by a drifting vehicle. There are even more stories associated with this scary place. Of course, there are real horrors that occurred there, but a few seem to be unverifiable legends. Located about an hour outside of Los Angeles, Turnbull Canyon, inhabited by ghosts, evil spirits, and cults, and other strange phenomena. This canyon simply screams, "Stay away." The Gordon Light is a current phenomenon and not one that has only been observed in the past. It has been seen on television, photographed by tourists, and generally accepted as existing. Unsolved Mysteries, the TV show, even came to town to document it in 1994. The mystery is not whether it exists or not. The mystery is what exactly the light is. Locals tell the legend to explain the light, but Unsolved Mystery tells another. The common theme in both legends is that the ghost appears to be a railway worker. The location is still used by the railway industry, and the way the light moves would be reminiscent of a railway worker holding a lantern. One of the legends is historically accurate. In 1931, William McLean, foreman of the Missouri Police Railroad, fired Lewis McBride, who took the life of his former boss in revenge. The events leading up to the crime are a bit unclear. Some sources say the argument is that McBride sabotaged a section of track that caused a derailment. Others said that McBride asked for more hours and McLean wouldn't give them to him. And in 1932 newspaper article, it is said that McBride told the sheriff that he took McLean's life because McLean had accused him of causing a train accident a few days earlier. With this newspaper documentation, it is most likely this is the truth of all the legends. Regardless, McLean was beaten with an iron mallet. McBride was subsequently sentenced to electrocution and executed on July 8th, 1932. Gordon's light was first recorded shortly after his execution in the 1930s. According to some theories, the light is McLean haunting the train tracks and carrying the same lantern he was said to have carried while working. The theory put forward by the locals is shorter in terms of his historical accuracy, but is still equally interesting. It is said that one night a railway worker was working on the outskirts of town. He accidentally fell into the train tracks and his head became separated from his body. They never found his head. Locals said the light was actually the light from his lantern as he walked the trail searching for his missing head. It is quite common for railway workers to be injured, so it is possible that one of them was beheaded. This light is not visible from the highway. It's a 2.5-mile walk to where you can see the mysterious lantern. The location is marked by a gentle slope followed by a long hill. The light is a strange blue-white light, sometimes appearing orange. It sways back and forth and moves along the horizon. The low lights are usually seen on darker nights and are clearest when the weather is cloudy and overcast. Unsolved Mystery TV show has yet to discover what the light actually is, and no scientists have yet explored the area, but there are a few theories. One leading theory is that they are actually just highway lights reflecting off the trees. However, historians disagree. They say that the light was written and spoken of long before the highway existed. Scientists tried to explain this light and concluded that it could not be a highway light. In an Arkansas Gazette article from the 1980s, a former Henderson State University graduate studied the light and stated the closest highway to the railroad tracks is about 4 miles away, and there's a large hill between the railroad tracks and the highway. If the light is created by headlights passing by, it will have to reflect up and over the hill to be visible on the other side. The article claims that he attempted to estimate how long it would take a car to cross the horizon at a 45-degree angle, which is the angle of the highway relative to the railroad tracks at a speed of 55 miles per hour, moving at 80 feet per second. He explained the lights will stay visible for much longer than the time it takes for Gordon's light to appear and disappear. He also walked close enough to the highway to hear the sounds of specific trucks. He emphasized that sound is never coordinated with the appearance of the light. Dr. Charles Lemming, a professor of physics at Henderson State University, was an expert on light. He and his students made many observations about the light. An impressive discovery that is when observing the light through filters, the light is never polarized. Any mirage light will be polarized. They also could not find any electromagnetic currents, and the light appeared consistently regardless of atmospheric conditions. There is also a theory that the pressure placed on the quartz crystals beneath the Gordon causes them to emit electricity and create light. The theory is that the New Madrid fault, which runs through the area, puts intense pressure on the crystals and squeezes them together, causing them to become electrically charged and ignite sparks. Gordon, Arkansas is located approximately 75 miles south of Little Rock on Interstate 30 and is just east of Interstate 67. The light is located outside of town and along a stretch of railroad line. It takes several hours to reach the location. You can ask residents of Gordon for guidance. Ask at any gas station. Everyone in this small town knows what you mean. They call it the Ghost Light Bluffs. Maybe I'll visit this location in a future video too. There is another light urban legend similar to this one, a ghost light known as Moody's Light in Indiana. The story goes that a farmer named Moody lived with his wife and 2 daughters on a farm just across the road. One evening he returned home to find his family mutilated and stabbed multiple times. Authorities investigated but found nothing. As time passed after burying his family, Moody gradually became depressed and unhinged, causing his farm to fall to ruins. One morning, a neighboring farmer happened to find Moody hanging from a tree. Soon after, local farmers began reporting a mysterious lantern-like light floating above the cornfields. Legend has it that it is Moody's ghost searching for the person who took his family's life in 2003. It was 50 degrees outside with clear skies and quite breezy. We really had no idea what this light was going to look like. We had never seen a picture of it, and the stories that we heard is that it chases you and moves from side to side. We flashed our lights 3 times and drove the 1.5 miles down the road to the end of town. We turned around and found this tree stump. It was hard to find, especially at night. We parked the tree stump and flashed our lights 3 times again. We looked north and saw this orangish light. It looked like a street light, and we thought it could be, except it would go away then come back every so often. The light would go from orange to red and from big to small. It never got any closer, any farther away from where it was at. Thinking ahead and being smart like always, we brought a pair of binoculars to get a closer view of the light. When we looked through the binoculars, we could see 3 different lights. Then it would be 4, then sometimes it would be 2 or 1, then sometimes nothing. morning when we didn't use the binoculars. The 3 or 4 lights looked like one single light, just brighter. People have said that the light is just lights from cars going down the highway, and some have even said it's swamp gas. We drove down the end of the meridian so we could get the best look at the light. It still seemed to be pretty far away. Since that was as far as the road went, we got the best picture we could of the light. We still have no idea what causes this light. We are still pretty sure that it wasn't a ghost, but other than that, we really have no idea. We might have to go back there and find out the real cause of the light. Another story reads, I've been there a couple of times. That tree that Moody supposedly hung himself from is now a stump that has satanic symbols carved into it. Satanists used to hang animals from that tree, so they cut it down to a stump. The first time I went there was like a scary movie. We had trouble finding the place because of all the roads there look the same. All gravel roads with cornfields on each side. We got to this old church that was converted into a home to ask for directions. This old woman answered the door, and we asked how to find Moody's Road. In an eerie voice, she said, "Oh, you don't want to go there. That place is evil." Then either her sister or friend came and said, "Yeah, that place is evil. You really don't want to go there, do you?" So they gave us directions, but again warned us. There's this gravel road called Moody Road. You get about 100 feet away or so from that stump. It is suggested to flash your lights 3 times, but both times I've been there, we didn't need to. There's a soft incline about 150 yards ahead. First, there was a yellowish light that looked to be coming from an old-fashioned lantern. It would get closer slowly. We then saw another light, a green one that was also coming very slowly. The lights came over that little hill in the road. We tried to chase down that light, but the legend said if you can't catch it, at the end of the road is absolutely nothing. There's a drop off into a field of nothing, and there is no source for that light that can be explained. Whether or not the legend is real, the lights definitely are. Hello. Hello. Hi. See, we have a taker. You don't want it? That's my hand, ma'am. My hand. My hand. That's all. Hello. Hello. There. Took you long enough. Don't want it. Maybe your friends will eat it. No? made a mess. That one's been licking me. No, don't eat my hair, please. Oh. I wish I had something better to give him. Oh. You want scratches? Oh! You want kisses? There you go. There you go, sweet baby girl. Oh, oh. This one likes me. Here comes another. Oh, 10%. Other ladies are uninterested. Of cows so much. My shoe came off, Jesus Christ. Of course I wear flip-flops on a farm. Two baby cows. Should go back to filming now. They don't like the husks I brought them. I'm sure they'd probably prefer strawberries or something, but that's what I had. Anyway. Of cows and can go back to filming. Thank you for visiting me, ladies. Thank you. Thank you.